Hey everyone, it's Tanner here. So today I wanted to make a video for you guys that I call The Power of Resilience, Creating Your Own Happiness. Because I've been through a lot in my life that has made me question whether I deserve to be happy and whether I would have the motivation to keep on marching forward. And I just wanted to do everything I could to inspire you guys to realize that even when times get tough, you have the power to make a difference and should not let anyone else define your strength or self worth. And I dedicate this video to my chemistry students who have made me feel like I am important, and I cannot thank them enough for their support. And I'm going to share some stories with you guys today, as well as some of the lessons that I've learned along the way. And I just hope they resonate with you. And some of them are pretty heavy, so I did just want to give a warning that I'll be talking about some dark things. But I think they're important to share, as I believe in the power of vulnerability, and I don't like to let silence win. Note that I did not come to many of these takeaways on my own, as I've been in therapy at the BCC and I've watched countless TED Talks and other videos and taken psych classes on how to be in a better mental state. And I encourage you guys to use these resources as well, as there is a world of support out there if you have the courage to seek it. And I know very much what it is like to struggle immensely on the inside and question whether the next day is worthwhile. And I just find it really helpful to relate to another human being who can truly empathize with what I'm going through. Hence why I'm making this video, as I never want you guys to feel alone. So to start, I wanted to share the story of the loss of my father, Todd Eustace, which some of you guys may already know about, but I wanted to go into greater detail here. So I lost my father to what was essentially suicide on July 4th, 2022. My dad was overall a good human who unfortunately had a lot of bad luck in his life that led to depression, and he ended up coping with alcohol and a gambling addiction to the point that his quality of life was severely reduced. And he was so ashamed of himself for losing so much control, including gambling many thousands of dollars away, that he ended up self harming with the intent of ending his life, and then ultimately crashed his car into a tree that resulted in him passing away at the young age of 50. And as you guys can imagine, this has not been easy for me to get over, and my family and I still struggle with it immensely. We constantly grieve. And we cannot help but look back in hindsight and think about what we could have done differently, and if there's anything we could have done or said to prevent my dad from succumbing to his inner turmoil. And we are forced to accept that we will likely never be able to pinpoint exactly what exactly the tipping point was, and the fact that we cannot change the past is one of the most difficult things that we gotta come to terms with. And I myself wish I could have been more compassionate towards my dad, as I hadn't realized the severity of his struggles, and there's a part of me that can't help but feel like a failure of a son. And this takes me to my first lesson. As someone who tends to ruminate a lot and obsessively think about what I could have done differently, I want you guys to give yourselves some self compassion. And if you find yourselves if you're in a similar boat, recognize that it's okay. Because as humans, we make the best decisions at any given time based on the information we have. And once we learn new things, it is super easy to look back and regret and fall victim to hindsight bias. But we have to recognize that mistakes are a natural part of life, and we shouldn't feel shame for not being able to predict the future. In connecting to my dad's story, my family and I did not know the extent of what he was going through, so we didn't really feel the need to check up on him or go out of our way to make him feel loved. We simply did not understand the scope of his struggles at the time, so we shouldn't have to feel bad about ourselves. And after all, my dad used to act like he was strong willed and indestructible, and it's sometimes the people who seem the toughest on the outside who may be hurting the most internally. This connects to my next point about the importance of treating others with kindness and giving people the benefit of the doubt. When people are going through things, they can't always bring their best selves to the table, and it's natural to blame them for their troubles while underestimating the impact of the other influences in their life that are causing them to act that way. And so I think it's just really important to try and get the full picture before assuming something about someone, and to check up on people to send the message that they are cared for and have worth. And I think there's so much value in simply telling someone that you are there for them and that they can tell you anything, as that sends the message that you are someone they can trust to confide in, which can be truly life saving for that person. Now, as important as it is to be there for others, it is just as important that you prioritize your own self care. And besides having compassion for yourself, my biggest piece of advice as a graduating senior who's interacted with many, many people in college and beyond is to do your best to surround yourself with people who want you to be your most authentic self and to push you to succeed and achieve your best without letting your flaws characterize their perception of you. Because everyone has flaws, and if people view those as being your most important qualities, then that's not really the way that they should be viewing you. And I know firsthand what it is like to put so much effort into trying to please others who cannot seem to love me for me, no matter what I do, which is not only exhausting and a waste of energy, but is also damaging to my own self worth, as it is easy for me to assume that I am the problem and not them. For example, I once tried to reach out to someone from my high school who I had a bad falling out with, in order to try to express humility in showing that I've grown and to reveal the story of my dad's passing. And this person's response was disturbingly cold, in saying that she could not care any less about my life update, and that if I had truly grown, then I would not have to prove it to anyone. And I kept reaching out to try and change her mind, but she never budged. And these words have bothered me for a long time as I keep blaming myself and thinking that I must be a terrible person for her having responded that way and for her not having shown any sympathy for my loss. But over time, through the validation of my loved ones, I realized that her response was in fact unnecessarily hurtful. And I am allowed to showcase my growth and be proud of my accomplishments to those who genuinely care about me. And I don't need to try to focus on the haters, so to speak, as they're likely dealing with their own insecurities that they feel the need to project onto others, and their closed minds will likely only harm them in the long run. To quote Simon Cowell, the one way you win over bullies is by being happy and successful. Bullies are always threatened by talented people. So if you guys find yourselves in similar situations, you don't have to try to put pressure on yourself to please the wrong people. You just gotta find your army who will be there for you, which might take some trial and error, but will be ultimately worthwhile. If people are making you feel uncomfortable in your own skin, then you have the right to express how you're feeling, and if they truly care about you, then they'll make an effort to better support you. But if they're unwilling to change if they are unwilling to change, then you should feel confident in doing what you need for self-care, which might mean distancing yourself. This can be difficult when it comes to people like roommates or classmates since you might not be able to avoid them entirely, but as long as you communicate in a respectful and genuine manner, then you can feel proud of yourself knowing that you did what you could to have a healthy conversation. And another person's unwillingness to change is a reflection of them and not you. And this brings me to my final main point, which is that you ultimately know yourself best and should not let another person define you or what you're capable of. It is so easy to fall into the trap of letting others determine our self worth or who we should be and comparing ourselves. And I think it is an unfortunate part of society since, as long as you're a productive member of the community who puts in good faith effort and doesn't try to harm others, then I think you're doing exactly what you need to do. And I find it so disheartening when people try to box others in. I remember, for example, my family assuming that medical school or a PhD would be in my future when I entered college, not realizing that genetic counseling was my ultimate passion. And because I had that idea in my head of like what I had to do for the future to please my family, I felt that I had to follow like a clear-cut academic path, and I was hesitant to like look at classes during my freshman year that might have interested me, classes in other areas, and so I might have put restrictions on myself during my freshman year that could have hindered my experience. And you guys may or may not know this already, but I am a queer person, and even though I grew up in a relatively accepting community and my family was ultimately accepting, I remember just being so incredibly anxious to come out and fearing that I would not be treated the same and that I would be ostracized, which made me feel reserved and scared to be my whole self. And what people often don't realize about people who go through this is that whenever we associate with someone who doesn't know a vulnerable part of our identity, like whenever we walk into like a new room of people, we have to constantly assess whether or not we can afford to bring our full selves to the table. As no matter how far society comes, there are still going to be people with prejudice who might see us in a negative light upon finding out about our true selves, which can really complicate our interpersonal relationships. And so, unfortunately, when it comes to like academics or coming out or other things, there's just a lot we cannot change, as our families or society as a whole will inevitably impose restrictions on us, and people will judge us for the smallest things. But we just have to do our best to focus on what we can control and take ownership of who we are. And when the haters cannot be escaped, your happiness might have to come from within, as you deserve to be able to live authentically. There is no shame in reaching out for support and looking out to find your chosen family. Connecting with musical artists can also be a fantastic outlet, and that's why music is such a large part of my life, as I can relate to people's hardships that they express through song, which brings me a sense of relief knowing that overcoming adversity is, in fact, possible. And so between my dad's suicide, some really bad, unfair friendship falling outs, coming out, and a lot more struggles, such as going through the divorce of my parents at 9 years old, I've been through a lot beneath the surface. But I'm still here, about to graduate college with 2 majors and a medical assistant position lined up, and some really incredible people in my life who I know I can count on. And I'm sharing this as proof that despite immense hardship, it is still possible to find happiness. And I hope that what I've shared today can help you guys find that. To quote one of my favorite musical artists, her name is Nightbird, she was on America's Got Talent, you can't wait until life isn't hard anymore before you decide to be happy. And when you have the courage to take that first step in working towards achieving your inner peace, it will become a little bit easier over time. And so the path to success is very nonlinear, it's a roller coaster. You're going to have good days and less good days. But it's not about how many times you fall down, it's about how many times you get back up. And I will strive to embody this mindset myself as I reapply for graduate schools in the next cycle. And if you guys need any more support, you're more than welcome to email me, and I'm happy to talk to you about anything. And not to plug my channel, but I encourage you to check out my music here so that you can relate to these artists. And without music, life would be flat and a major disappointment. And thank you guys so much for your support and for watching. And this is Tanner signing off.